college was my favorite period in life because I got the most out of it. And it's almost comparative because on the episode about our youth, I felt like I was completely stifled. Like it was no growth. It was just a matter of getting through life.
That's interesting that college is your favorite time.
Yeah.
Because I have the opposite feeling, but keep talking. Why is college your favorite?
I think almost comparatively because high school was the worst time. So it's said that after your worst day, it's almost your best day. So I felt like my worst period was high school. Okay, my adolescence was my worst period in life, I think. And I think by comparison, college was my best time in life. But not just through comparison, but I think I got the most out of it because I put the most into it at that period. And I think I almost take it for granted that I got like a career right after and like solid trajectory right after that. But I think if it wasn't for my mindset for being in the place I was, I probably wouldn't have gotten as much out of it. But because I gone through the things I did and I put in the effort I did, I think the rewards I reaped were actually things I really enjoyed.
Mm-hmm. That's great. That makes a lot of sense. And you're in a place where you feel motivated because of the people you surround yourself with. I think life is like that. Sometimes it's comparative to some extent. Mine's like the opposite. I feel like it was a period of tremendous personal growth because it was very challenging. But because it's very challenging, I think about it's very traumatic for me as well. I think it took me several years before I was able to go back to Stanford and be able to walk around in peace. I think before, it's just, I think the isolation part was just too difficult for me for my first couple of years. I don't know if you remember Zynga. It was an online blogging site back in the day.
Yes.
I used to have a blog on Zynga where I would talk about these experiences. I go back home for a weekend. I come back to Stanford and life was like 180 degrees. It was just like completely different at home, at Stanford, and it was isolating for me. It took me a week or two to kind of get back into the rhythm. And even the hardest part was coming back to school after a long summer break. And I would put on the song by Green Day, "Wake Me Up When September Ends."
Yeah.
And I was like, shit, it's traumatic times for me. Just because I don't think I was very close to anyone, particularly there. Of course, student organizing was great, but on a personal level, it's just hard to connect with anybody. And then it took me several years, but I feel like I gained so much out of it too. But it was such a challenging time. It's just kind of funny in that difficult times can make the best of times because I learned so much about who I am and so much of what I do today, my skills, my knowledge. I attribute it to my 4 years at Stanford.
I understand exactly what you mean. I guess I'm in that unique space that you also occupy, that I know your hometown friends and I know your college friends. So like those two things can be completely different especially for us, because we know people from different kind of backgrounds. Like in college, maybe they're more upper middle class and maybe they're more affluent. Whereas our hometown, like we mentioned before, they're all either refugees like us or people that we connect to are kind of like from poverty. So you almost code switch when you're in college because you need to blend in, you need to match the tone. But then when you're at home, it's like a different kind of vernacular. So sometimes there's almost like a mismatch when they're in the presence of each other. Like you have a birthday or a graduation, and then like you have the two friends.
I know, it's like I gotta translate. They're saying stuff. It's like I gotta make sure it's interpreted appropriately by my activist friend.
Yeah, and you notice it. You absolutely see it, and I think that's one thing about college. I met different kind of Asians. So we grew up with our Southeast Asians. But then in college, it was mostly East Asians or like Asians who've immigrated here for a longer period. So they almost seem more American than Asian, but they still emphasize or tapped into their Asianness. So they never lost that, which was what was really great about seeing people that came from that kind of background. You feel more comfortable because people aren't trying to just assimilate and say, no, the answer is to assimilate into the dominant culture. The idea was more of like, well, I'm part of this culture, but I also have something to contribute. And I think that's what you really learn when you participate in these spaces or meet people that are well acclimated to the environment they're in.
Yeah, I think that's a good point about college teaching us that we can be in multiple spaces. Like we can be Southeast Asian and also Asian Americans. Even though some of these spaces might not be inclusive, we are just as valuable to that larger group as other members. And I think that's something valuable for us to take. But I think it's also unique to us being like Southeast Asian American men as well, because we have to navigate like multiple very distinct worlds where we go to college and we have a different group of friends. We come back home, it's a different group of friends, and we have to manage that and code switch. And for some people, it's hard for them to do that. And so they have to let one or the other go. Like they are so tight, they are so connected to the family when they go to college, and they can't get into those circles because of those push and pull factors. And then for us, we survive. But it's difficult to be able to always like code switch, to be able to always like put on a different face and things like that. But I think it helps us to see things differently, being in those two different spaces.
I guess one thing you end up doing too is you adapt to that environment in different ways. So sometimes you just stay who you are, and hopefully people understand that. They just understand that you are your experiences shape you. So that's what it is. But sometimes people are a little bit more pressing. They're kind of like need you to be where they're at. So you'll understand that too. And I think when you meet people like that, it's always a matter of like, what do you want out of that kind of relationship? Do you want to just always front, just like lie to kick it, Because I think that's what's nice about your hometown friends. Sometimes they just know you as who you are, just because you grew up that way and everything. Like you're not changed. But in college, sometimes they only see you at a certain moment. So you almost have to present yourself in a certain way, and you have to keep going with that facade.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, I think we present ourselves more when we are in college more so than we're at home, because I feel like you're more relaxed. But in college or in these different spaces, you got to try to fit in.
Yeah. So sometimes that leads to thinking about it. So like, how do you navigate those spaces? And it shouldn't be stressful just because sometimes you just you just adapt. Like when you're in that moment, you do that and then you do that.
It becomes seamless. It's like, it's habitual now. It's based on habits. We don't think much about it. It's like when I teach, my interactions with my friends and my family members are quite different. When I get on stage and I get to my classroom, it's a different person. It's a Professor Lord person. I speak differently. I speak with more of an authority because I'm in the classroom. But at home, it's just, much more laid back, more lazy voice. And that's perfectly fine. We're different people. We have different roles to play. And it's not that I'm faking it, but it's the role I choose to present myself in that way, And so if it's of your choosing to some extent, then you're not faking it.
Yeah, I think that's the best way to think about it. You have different roles. So I think some people who are too much about one or the other, something like that, then it's going to be really difficult. So hopefully you're around people that are supportive, and then you understand they could support you in different ways.
Yeah, because I like to tell people there's different places at different times for different you. I think people get into trouble when they feel like I got to be the same me everywhere I go. No, like I'm a father. I can't be the same, when I'm a friend. My repertoire of speech and behaviors change from place to place because I have a different identity I occupy.
And I think for me, like with the beliefs I have and my personality, sometimes it's easy to get along with some people, and sometimes it's not easy. And that really depends on like your setting. Like if you're need to be professional, then you don't need to always have opinions on everything and express it. You don't have to express your opinion on every issue when you're doing certain things, like let's say at work or with others that might be in a senior role. It doesn't mean you're passive. It doesn't mean you're letting them get away with it. It's just you have to interact with different people in different ways at different times.
To end today's show, let's briefly just talk about what advice or what knowledge will you give to a person in your shoe who is entering college.
This would be my graduation speech for like the keynote graduation speech.
Yep.
I never got to study abroad when I was in college because as a transfer student, there might have been the opportunity, but I didn't really see that opportunity. So I felt like if I went to college as a 4-year student, then I would have got that opportunity. And I think that's what I would have wanted to do. And I wonder if in some ways I'm making up for it now by living and working abroad. So it's like, oh, I didn't get it in college. Guess what? I'm going to do that as a career. So maybe that motivated me to do it. If I could give anyone advice, I think if you're going to go to a 4-year college, you should go abroad because not only by living and working abroad now, it really helps shape my perspective. But I think if you feel like the classroom itself is a little limiting, then by going abroad, that's going to really open things up. If you're going to have a global mindset, if you are really open-minded, that's really what's going to make you even more globalized because that's going to bring in more perspective, but not just because you learn it, but it's because you experience it. You have to go through life in that different setting in a different way. And I feel like that's the issue with my hometown. A lot of times people just stay there, not even like venture out of the town. So it's like, wow, if you can't even get out of your own town, how are you going to learn more about the world? So that's one thing. Learn more about just how to communicate. In general, a lot of the people I met were from spaces that already allowed them to be who they were or who they are or who they can be. And they used those kind of skills from their upbringing and they brought it with them. And then I learned that from them. So I feel like you have a lot to contribute. And if you feel like you don't, then there are others that are willing to connect with you and maybe you can learn a lot from them. And it's not about just taking. I think what you end up getting to later is skills to facilitate or to pass on that kind of ability later, because you may not even know it, but it already kind of changes you. And then when it changes you like that, you end up passing it on too.
Yeah, I think for me, I would kind of recommend two things that I actually did and one thing I didn't do. The first thing is get involved in student organization. It helps you to feel like you belong there. It helps you to succeed because those people are going to the same institution. And so, I didn't party in college, but I mean, if people party in college, if you go to people who go to school, when it's midterm season, when it's final season, they don't party. Okay. And so, yes, there's time and there's time and place for everything. And so you gotta really connect with your college community. Friendship is so important, and you learn so much skills and knowledge from student organization, student organizing. So I think that's the first thing I would recommend. And the second thing is to explore opportunities outside of the classroom. So I was very fortunate. I was doing internships. I was doing research opportunities. I was able to live in different places and travel to different places that I didn't think was possible through these opportunities. And I recognize I'm very privileged because I went to a college that had a lot of resources. But sometimes you got to take advantage of these resources. My first summer after college, I lived in Fresno for a summer doing youth empowerment work. My second year was the research year where I took multiple plane flights to the Midwest and overcame my fear of flying. Because before then, I was very afraid of flying, but I flew maybe like 5 or 6 times within a span of 3 months. And I got over my fear of flying to be able to do research about my own political participation. And then my third summer, I spent doing nonprofit work in Thailand. And that was a wonderful experience as well. So definitely take advantage of study abroad, internship, or if they pay you to work with nonprofit, do those things. If you have a choice between working at, let's say, Starbucks or working at a nonprofit, choose the nonprofit to learn. It puts you in a position where you actually learn skills that can help you grow as a person. And so, yes, join student organization, take advantage of those extracurricular opportunities. And then the third thing that I didn't do is try to live in the present, like try not to make meanings out of so many things. I feel like for me, because I feel like I didn't belong there. Every interaction I interpret through the lens of, well, this is another example of me not fitting in. Like anytime I didn't speak in my section discussion, I feel like, oh, it's just another sign that I don't belong here. Or if I had a bad grade, I feel like, well, just another sign that I don't belong here. Or if I said something and the other person couldn't understand it right away, I interpret it as a sign that I'm not good at communication. It's just sometimes it's not about us, it's about them. And so I just feel like my experience wasn't the best that it could be, because even though I was like fully engaged and I was taking advantage of these opportunities, it was like the small day-to-day things that really got me down. I just feel like every interaction, it was like a determination whether I belong there or not. And it was very draining to me. And so I do discourage folks from trying to project everything based on like these small, minor day-to-day incidents, because they can take away the joy and happiness in our day-to-day lives.
Yeah, it's like negative reinforcement. It's like you're rationalizing this is why that is. Yeah, I think overall, college, highly recommended. I think you're going to get more out of life. Maybe it's not for everyone. I don't think everyone needs to go, but I definitely think the people that want something that they can't get, that they feel like is possible, then I think college is a great place. First of all, I think what college is great for is, I think college is great for failing. Like if you want to experiment, you want to try, then you can do that there. Like you're there to learn. So that's how you could do it. And I don't necessarily mean failure as in grades, but I feel like if you wanted to try something or learn something or do something, that's a good space for it. So college, you're going to get more out of it than just your education. You'll get experience.
Great. So that wraps up our episode on our college experiences. Hopefully it was useful to those of you who are listening. We do want to encourage our Southeast Asians, brothers and sisters, to go to college, but we also recognize college is not the right fit for everyone. So just like any suggestion out there, think about yourself, think about your future, and think about what works best for you. And so even though we live in a college culture for all, where everyone's encouraged to go to college, it doesn't have to start at the 4 year. Like Jason, you can start at the 2 years and see if it works out. If it doesn't work out, then maybe college is not the right fit. You can pursue vocational education or apprenticeship, or go straight into the labor market. So our next episode is going to be about our career. How did we get to our career? What are some of the barriers but opportunities that presented itself? And what do we do in our day-to-day life? So we'll see you in our next episode.
Great being here, and see you next time.